Hey Sixers, how are you? We're going to continue our exploration in the roots of Western philosophy today, and we're going to talk about Plato. No, not that thing you used to have fun with in preschool to make and shape things and probably eat, which you really shouldn't do because it's not healthy. Yes, the other Plato, the famous philosopher of ancient Greece and student of Socrates. So let's continue exploring the golden age of Greece and philosophy and get into wit. There he is. There's Plato. See, he's not made out of shiny, colorful clay. Um, when Plato was a young dude, when he was just play, just kidding. He looked to enter politics, and the more he got involved in politics, the more discouraged he became because he saw that a lot of the elected leaders in Athens, the people, and a lot of the people as parts of the assembly, were corrupt. That they weren't serving in the people's interest, they were serving their own interest. And he was frustrated with this corruption and sees this guy Socrates and decides to follow him and learn from him. And it'll transform his life. After Socrates is executed, Plato kind of becomes discouraged. He goes on a quest for knowledge, wanders around Greece for a bit, and eventually makes his way back to Athens to establish an academy, the academy. This is a school which is not open for everybody, but for people who demonstrate wisdom, who he feels are ready to prepare to become a leader. And he has courses and curriculums and all sorts of things like a school. It's one of the first formal schools ever established. And there's courses in mathematics, science, philosophy, and many consider this, the academy, to be the first university of higher learning. That's the first model for what would become our university and college system. And Plato is a big advocate for education. He feels that the thing that leads to the most problems in society is ignorance. That ignorance, people who choose to be unintelligent, who choose not to learn, that is the root of evil. That leads to greed, that leads to selfishness, and that he felt that if people were educated how to be good, how to be moral, then good can exist. Without education, there is no good, and only evil will be bred through ignorance. So, as a writer, Plato was very influential. Most of his writings are his reflections and memories on the lessons that Socrates taught in his lifetime in working with his students. And this collection of Socrates' lessons are called the dialogues. A dialogue means conversation, and in a movie or a play, dialogue is spoken conversation between characters. And that is how he presents this. It's presented as almost as a dramatic work. And Socrates is the lead character, and he is having a conversation with his students about different topics. And these dialogues are pretty important because Socrates didn't really write, and we were limited in what we have about him. And a lot of what we learned about him really comes from Plato. So it's funny, the student is the one who teaches us about the teacher. Anyway, there's also a lot of conjecture that not only are we getting an idea of Socrates' beliefs, but the character of Socrates, who is not the man Socrates, is somebody writing a character of him, also is pretty reflective of Plato's personal beliefs. In a lot of ways, Plato in the dialogues substitutes Socrates for himself. One of the things that we see in the dialogues is the model for the Socratic method, which we talked about with Socrates, where Socrates would ask questions to his followers, to his students, and then continue to ask hard and challenging follow-up questions to force them to reconsider, to rethink about their morality, rethink about their set beliefs, to get them to question what they've considered to be truth, and to get them to examine and examine and examine. Again, remember the quote from Socrates, "An unexamined life is not worth living." That's a tribute to Socrates, but it was written by Plato because it's that big lesson from the early dialogues. But of all the dialogues, probably the most famous is called the Republic. And the Republic is reflective of how in the later dialogues, Socrates, and by proxy, Plato's criticism of a lot of popular opinions is really put out in the forefront, where he's just going after a lot of things that people just assume are true and right and moral. He goes after morality. What is virtue? What is honesty? What is courage? He goes after the ideas of government. He's very harshly critical on democracy, which he felt that was ruled by the ignorant in a lot of ways. He has a lot of questions about what is justice, what is injustice, and a lot of criticism on religion, which is often very controversial, as you can imagine. And in the Republic, he argues that a utopian society, a perfect society, can be created by humans, which we have yet to find. Many people have attempted a utopian society. One is yet to find it. And his argument that a perfect society is one that everybody functions in harmony, that each of the people in the society accept their role and work to fulfill their role to the best ability. And if they do that, like a healthy body, a healthy society will live. And he often makes the analogy between the body and the society of if you want it to be the body to run well, what do you need to do? So the brain of the body, according to Plato, were the kings, but not just any king, not somebody who inherited rule like, hey, I'm king because my dad was king. No, he believed that there should be philosopher kings, that you had to earn your kingship, that only the wisest people, those who proved themselves to have the greatest degree of intelligence, those who prove that they can make the best decisions, that only they should be allowed someone's to make the laws, to make the rules, to govern. So that's the brain of society. The heart, the courage of society, are the soldiers or guardians, the people who defend and protect the nation, who maintain order, who keep things going. And then the last group are the producers, and that would be the stomach, the appetite, the desire. And they're the ones who produce the essentials, the things that we have an appetite for, that we need in order to survive, that grow the foods, that produce the goods that we need to survive. If we have those three levels, the philosopher, king, the guardian, and producer, all running well, then society will be perfect in Plato's eyes. The Republic is pretty influential in a lot of ways. One, it goes against a lot of the ideas, the established ideas about what leadership was to be, what society was to be. Rulers, Plato argues, have the right to rule only if they prove themselves to be wise, if they prove themselves to be worthy. Well, before this, anybody who was a king, anybody who was an emperor, anybody who was a pharaoh, claimed to have the power to rule from the gods, that they inherited that power from their family, that their family was superior, so their lineage was superior, that the gods chose them because they were superior. That's why they should rule. Plato says, no, it doesn't matter who your father is. It doesn't matter who your parents are. It doesn't matter what gods you believe in. Only the people who are intelligent, who are smart, are good at problem solving, those are the only ones that should be allowed to rule. That's a pretty big idea. The idea that everybody has a role in society, that if everyone isn't fulfilling their role, then society doesn't run. Instead of it just being that everyone's role in society is to serve the king. No, everybody from the poorest farmer to the philosopher king, their job is to work to serve the society itself, to serve the community itself. And that if everybody works to serve the community, then it'll work in harmony. And these ideas are going to have a big idea on republicanism, that we should be able to elect who we think is the wisest, the best, to make decisions for us. And also, it's going to have a lot of influence on the economic theories on socialism and communism, of that everybody working in harmony, that there's no sense of property, that everyone works for the community. Those ideas will definitely come out of that as well. Another big lesson out of Plato's Republic is the cave allegory, which I won't get into the full thing, but it illustrates why he thinks that most people are ignorant. He thinks that people are basically spend their lives watching shadows dancing on a wall, when they could simply turn around and look out and leave the cave and see that there's this whole real world that's producing those shadows, that the shadows aren't real. What is real is the things producing the shadows. And he feels that most people choose to watch the shadows. Most people choose to be ignorant rather than choosing to turn around and see the light and see the world for what it is. Maybe a lot of analogies that can be found there into our times that we have looking at shadows on our screens. I don't know. So what I'd like you to do is, one, answer these questions. Should only those who prove themselves to have the most wisdom be allowed to be the leaders of a society? Like Plato is arguing. Do you agree with Plato? Or are there traits that are more important than wisdom in determining what makes a great leader? Someday you're going to be a voter. Would you like to have a philosopher king, the smartest person to rule? Or would you like the bravest, or so on and so forth? What do you think is the most important? For bonus points, there is I'm putting a TED Ed clip from the about the cave allegory of Plato, and if you want to watch it, it's about 4 minutes, and write a short review. I'll throw you some bonus points on here. It's definitely worthwhile. It's one of the more famous lessons in philosophy and human history. Definitely worth checking out. Thanks for watching. Have a wonderful one.